Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jivan Acharya. I'm the Principal Energy Specialist in ADB's South Asia team. And I would like to welcome all of you to the South Asia regional session in the SF program. The way we have designed this South Asia regional session is that there are multiple parts. The first part will be where we'll be launching the energy sector coffee table book for Nepal. And after that, we'll have a first part of our panel discussion with the senior policymakers. And after that, we have a coffee break. And then in the second part of it, we have a dialogue with the champions. We have some innovative projects and so on. So that's the program until 5:30 today. We have a very short time, a lot of things to cover. So at the beginning, I would like to request Cindy Malvicini. She's the Deputy Director General in ADB South Asia Department to give her welcome remarks. Cindy, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome you to the ACEF 2024 and the regional session focused on policy, technology, and finance in South Asia's energy security and transition. An event like this is a testament to the power of collaboration, bringing together leading experts, policymakers, champions, industry leaders, and innovators from across the region. I'm also honored to be here today as we celebrate ADB's partnership with Nepal in the energy sector. This partnership, which spans over 50 years, has been a beacon of progress and prosperity for the people of Nepal. I would like to especially welcome ADB's Vice President for South and Central and West Asia, Mr. Yingming Yang, and Mr. Sushil Chandra Tiwari, Secretary, Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation, as well as Kulman Singh, Managing Director, Nepal Electricity Authority, for the coffee table book launch as part of this celebration. Let us delve into the key highlights of this collaboration. I'd like to acknowledge the historical roots of our partnership with Nepal. It began in October 1972, when ADB provided a pivotal 2.7 million concessional loan for the construction of the 132 kV Hadauda-Gandak transmission line. Since then, ADB has been at the forefront of major hydropower projects, including the renowned 144 megawatt Kaligandaki A hydropower project, and the development of essential infrastructure such as high voltage transmission lines, substations, and the distribution networks across Nepal. ADB has been a driving force in advancing clean energy solutions in Nepal. We've facilitated access to clean energy in remote villages through innovative solar and wind-solar hybrid systems. ADB's ongoing initiatives, including the installation of underground distribution cables, electric vehicle charging stations, and smart meters, underscore our commitment to modernizing Nepal's energy landscape. But our efforts go beyond mere infrastructure development. We recognize that gender equity is integral in achieving sustainable energy for all. Affordable and clean energy sources not only enhance health outcomes, but also alleviate the burdens faced by women and children. ADB has always prioritized gender mainstreaming in all our energy projects, ensuring that the benefits of clean energy reach every corner of society. The benefits of uninterrupted power supply have already been felt across the nation. We have testimony from a woman named Ganga Shahi from Kaili district in the far west of Nepal. She says that with a 24-hour uninterrupted electricity, my daughter can study and do her homework even at night. I can also open my shop till late evening. Earlier, this was not possible as we would have light just for a few hours during the day. The reforms undertaken by the Nepal Electricity Authority deserve commendation as well. NEA has incorporated a series of reforms that have significantly improved their own operational performance and efficiency, while investing in environmental and safeguards and social safeguards have enhanced the long-term sustainability of the energy projects that they've sponsored. These efforts have not only minimized adverse effects on society and the environment, but they have also reduced time and cost overruns during project implementation, thus saving the government and the taxpayers critical funds. However, we must remain cognizant of the environmental and social risks associated with large energy projects, particularly the hydropower projects in Nepal. We're committed to managing these risks effectively, assuring that the projects that we sponsor benefit all segments of society. ADB's comprehensive environmental and socioeconomic impact assessments introduced during those early days of the Kaligandaki hydropower project have paved the way for job creation, skills training, and infrastructure development in the local communities that they benefit directly. So the benefits of uninterrupted power supply have transformed lives across Nepal, and this partnership is one that we're extremely proud of and thankful for with the government of Nepal. Looking ahead, we're optimistic about the future of our partnership. Through continued collaboration with the government, development partners, and the private sector, we aim to drive sustainable development and prosperity for the people of Nepal. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. I shouldn't be disclosing a very personal information, but there is such a coincidence of 1972 when ADB started its operation in Nepal, and that's when I was born also. So now I have the privilege to work for Nepal in the energy sector, so I feel very, very good about it. Thank you. So now I would like to request Vice President, Mr. In-Ming Yang, who looks after South Asia, Central and West Asia, to give a special remarks for the regional session and also the book launch. BP, please.
Honorable guests, distinguished delegates, good afternoon. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you today to the ACEF South Asia Regional Sessions. I'm glad to see so many important stakeholders and good friends gather here to discuss the crucial issues in comprising clean energy transition. As President Massa said in the opening remarks on Tuesday, the impacts of climate change are not distant threat, but a present reality. Therefore, we must take urgent actions. ACEF is such kind of a crucial platform for advancing our shared vision and initiatives in our quest for a sustainable and prosperous future. During ADB's annual meetings last month, 3 prominent issues have gained unanimous support, all of which are the imperatives of the ACEF sessions as well. Namely, it is critical to accelerate the region's clean energy transition to mitigate climate change faster and with scale. It is critical to accelerate private sector financing for climate change, since governments cannot achieve the needed transition by themselves, even with the increasing support from ADB and all the other partners. It is critical to accelerate regional cooperation to synergize cross-border complementarities for win-win solutions and quick results. Keeping the above 3 imperatives in mind, this afternoon we will focus on policy, technology, and finance for energy security and transition. All underscore the importance of innovation and collaboration in accelerating clean energy transition to fight against increasing climate challenges. On the policy front, I commend the countries in South Asia for setting up targets to meet their climate ambitions as part of their nationally determined contribution and other policy goals. For instance, the government of Bangladesh has set a target of covering 40% of its power generation with clean energy by 2041, and to import around 9 gigawatts under the regional cooperation arrangements. India has revised its climate action targets and pledged to reducing carbon intensity by 45 from 2005 levels by 2030, as well as achieving carbon neutrality by 2070. Bhutan, Maldives, Nepal, and Sri Lanka have also announced ambitious climate actions. On the technology front, I'm extremely impressed with the push from countries in South Asia for electric vehicles, battery storage, smart grids. On green hydrogen, Government of India has come forward with the National Green Hydrogen Mission to accelerate deployment of green hydrogen as a source of clean energy. On the financing front, I'm pleased to see that all countries have been increasing the financial inputs in climate response with either domestic resources or external resources. Being a climate bank of the region, ADB has implemented capital management reforms to unlock $100 billion in the new funding capacity over the next decade, including for climate actions. During ADB's annual meetings, $5 billion for Asian Development Fund replenishment was agreed to support most vulnerable in Asia and Pacific. Suffice it to say, an integrated approach is needed for energy transformation. ADB therefore has prioritized investments in clean energy infrastructure that enhance grid flexibility and reliability. ADB and the World Bank is jointly supporting large-scale hydropower projects in Nepal, not only for Nepal's own development, but also for regional common development through regional power trading. In this context, I'm also very pleased to attend today's launching of a coffee table book to showcase ADB's support to Nepal for clean energy generation, transmission, and distribution infrastructure development, and for modernizing the grid. ADB's work on the ground underscores its commitment as the climate bank for Asia and the Pacific. In this context, we are eager to listen to your guidance, specific guidance, ideas, and comments, so that together we can do better, bigger, and bolder. By concluding, let me wish a very productive discussion with very fruitful outcomes today. Thank you.
Thank you, BP. I now have the pleasure to invite Mr. Sushil Chandra Tiwari, Secretary, Energy, under Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation, and we're very pleased that you are joining us today. So, Secretary, please.
Thank you. Respected Vice President of ADB, Yingming Yang, Deputy Director General of the South Asia Departments, Ms. Cindy, Senior Director of Energy Sector Office, Priyantha, Director of Energy Sector Office, Ms. Sujata Gupta, Mr. Arnold Kausis, Country Director, Nepal Resident Missions, colleagues from Asian Development, Nepal Engineering Authority, Government of Nepal, and distinguished guests and participants. I extend my heartfelt congratulations to the Asian Development Bank for commemorating 50 years of collaborations with the Government of Nepal in the energy sector. This milestone is a testament to our continuous engagement, perseverance, and mutual understanding, which have forged a strong partnership and successful development cooperations. It is with great pleasure and honor that I am here to launch this book, which comprehensively documents our collaborations in the energy sector since the partnership began in 1972, preserving the institutional memory of the Nepal-ADB partnership. ADB has been a crucial development partner in advancing Nepal's energy sector. Among our development partners, ADB stands out for its significant investments in technical assistance in clean energy generation, transmission, distributions, and more recently, high-level technology such as smart meters and smart grids, prioritizing environmental and social sustainability. These efforts have had a profound impact on Nepal's economy. Currently, 98% of households in Nepal have access to grid and off-grid electricity. The widespread availability of clean energy has empowered individuals in both urban and rural areas to establish micro and small enterprises, fostering self-employment opportunities. This in turn has contributed to poverty alleviation of the country. The increased electricity production has enabled Nepal to embark on large-scale electricity exports. In November 2021, Nepal achieved a historic milestone by selling electricity on the day-ahead market to the Indian Energy Exchange for the first time. As a result, electricity poised to become a key export commodity, helping Nepal narrow its trade deficit and bolster foreign currency reserves. I express gratitude to ADB for its indispensable financial and technical support for strengthening in-country transmission infrastructure, which facilitate this achievement. The government of Nepal remains committed to harnessing its hydroelectric potential to expedite economic growth and enhance energy security. Recent fluctuation in international oil prices have underscored the need to reduce reliance on fossil fuels to protect Nepal's foreign exchange reserves. With aspirations to achieve 28,500 megawatt of power generation as envisioned in the Energy Development Roadmap and Action Plan by 2035, attain upper middle income status by 2030, and achieve net zero emission by 2045, Nepal cannot overlook such necessities. The Dudhkoshi Storage Hydropower Project, which is being prepared jointly with ADB, will play a major role in achieving this objective. I request that ADB deepen our collaboration in expediting its implementations. I am confident that the Nepal-ADB partnership in the energy sector will continue to thrive, advancing our shared objectives and fostering sustainable development. Thank you again, ADB, for taking the lead in preparing this very important coffee table book and providing an opportunity to join the launching of this book, participate in the ACF, and seeing higher official of ADB here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Sir. So now in our program, we have a launch of the coffee table book. For that one, I would like to invite 7 distinguished dignitaries here. Maybe stand here so that we'll give you the book and then we'll request you to do the launch here. So first of all, I will request VP Young to come. Now I also like to request the Secretary Sir to come again. And also like to request the Managing Director of NEA also to, yes. Managing Director of NEA also to come, and our DDG, Cindy, Priyantha Vijayatunga, Senior Director, Energy, and Sujata, Director for our South Asia, and also Arnold, our Country Director for Nepal Resident Mission, to come in the front and then do the opening, launching the coffee table book, please. Okay, thank you so much. But you may be wondering about what is there in the book. So we have prepared a very short video explaining about our 50 years of collaboration between Nepal and ADB, and then the video plays.
50 years ago, Nepal was virtually living in darkness. Nepal's electrification rate was about 2%. Half a century later, Nepal has undergone a remarkable transformation. Now, over 98% of households have access to electricity. The Asian Development Bank, ADB, has played a crucial role in advancing Nepal's clean energy development. The partnership between ADB and Nepal began in 1972 with funding for a transmission line project. Since then, in collaboration with other development partners, ADB has supported nearly 10% of the country's hydroelectric power generation, almost half of Nepal's transmission lines, and over 1/3 of its distribution lines. ADB partnered with the government of Nepal to build one of its largest hydropower projects. The 144-megawatt Kali Gandaki A hydropower project was built in the early 2000s to address severe power shortages in the country.
किताबहरु पढ्नको लागि पनि यो बत्ती आएपछि धेरै सजिलो तातो पानी तताउने धेरै सहज छ अहिले.
One of the biggest beneficiaries of the stable supply of electricity has been the industrial sector.
हिजो चाहिँ 18 घण्टा चाहिँ लोड सेडिङ बेहोरेका उद्योगीहरू जब यो लाइन चाहिँ सुचारू रूपले आइसकेपछि खुसी भएको अवस्था छ. क्षमता अभिवृद्धि गर्नु नै रोजगारी चाहिँ नै वृद्धि हुनु हो.
ADB's ongoing projects, such as the Tanahu hydropower project, represent vital steps in Nepal's energy transition. The storage-type project offers more reliable and predictable electricity, addressing Nepal's urgent climate change challenges by controlling floods and mitigating flow variability.
ADB is really proud of its long-term partnership with Nepal in developing its hydropower potential together with other development partners, particularly the government of Norway. And the progress so far has been outstanding, with Nepal achieving 98% access to energy and being able to export power during the wet season.
नेपाल हिजो इम्पोर्ट स्थितिबाट हामी एक्सपोर्ट गर्न सफल भयौं. एक्सपोर्ट गरेर जुन विदेशी मुद्रा कमाइरहेका छौं त्यो ठुलो कन्ट्रिब्युसन हो राज्यको लागि.
ADB has supported Nepal's effort to develop alternative renewable energy sources such as mini hydro, wind and solar power, particularly in remote and rural areas. Micro, small and medium enterprises, which make up over 90% of all businesses in Nepal, are witnessing enhanced productivity and increased income thanks to the stable electricity supply. Spanning over 5 decades, the partnership between ADB and Nepal has steered the country towards low-carbon development, improved energy security, increased private sector involvement in power generation, and spurred economic growth.
ADB will continue to work hand in hand with Nepal to develop further its hydropower potential, improve reliability of the energy supply, and expand electric power demand within the country.
Thank you so much. So by the way, this coffee table book will also be uploaded in our ADB website. So if you can also have a look at it there. So now to conclude our this book launching part of our regional session, I would like to request Arnold Koshwa for his vote of thanks as a country director for Nepal Resident Mission.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you.
It is my pleasure and a very proud moment for me to be here at the launch of this coffee table book to commemorate ADB's partnership with Nepal in the energy sector for 50 years. 50 years is 2 generations. And many of you here in the room were probably not born. Others were probably on the bank of the primary school. But I think this is a great pride to see this continuity in our support. We ADB, is really a key partner in Nepal energy sector development. We've been working very closely with the government of Nepal for this very long period, and through its country partnership strategy, ADB has been prioritized investment in large-scale hydropower projects and alternative renewable energy initiatives in alignment with Nepal's vision of energy security and export-oriented energy projects. The partnership between Nepal and ADB exemplify a long-standing commitment to inclusive development and sustainable energy solutions. In the last 5 decades, we have continuously increased our support to Nepal energy sector. Our partnership, as we have seen, has resulted in development of large generation plant, almost 50% of the present transmission network in Nepal, and more than 40% of the distribution network. Moreover, it has helped Nepal provide electricity access to more than 90% of its people. Our partnership with Nepal has built critical energy assets, helping it to move from decades of power cut to being an exporter of electricity to India, and on the way to contributing to regional cooperation and integration, and particularly supporting the region in energy transition. Our partnership in Nepal energy sector has led to collaboration among various development partners, and during which we have been leveraging financing with fundings from various countries and agencies, like, as I said in the video, the government of Norway, but also JICA and the European Investment Bank, and more recently, collaboration for major hydropower project is being initiated with the World Bank. I believe this coffee table book will be referred to in the future as a testament of our development cooperation in the energy sector in Nepal. And maybe there will be another coffee book, which I hope will be much before 50 years, with showing Nepal having, achieved its hydropower potential, providing reliable power supply to all parts of the country, and supporting high-tech green industries, services for the well-being of all the Nepalese people. I would like to thank Vice President Yang, Energy Secretary of Nepal, Sushil Chandra Tiwari, Managing Director, Nepal Electricity Authority, Mr. Kulman Gil Singh, for launching this book. I express also my gratitude to the government of Nepal for the collaboration over these 5 decades and support to come up with this publication. And finally, I also remember our co-financing partner for their trust in ADB, for the development of the sectors, and I thank, of course, the effort of my team for developing this very good publication. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arnold. So now this concludes our coffee table book launch program. So now on the second part of our first session is on the policy dialogue with the senior policy makers. And for that one, I would like to invite Sujata Gupta, Director, ADB, and she will be the moderator for this session. So Sujata, over to you. Sorry, I forgot to mention that there is also photo exhibition about this Nepal's this coffee table book and other activities, and we encourage all of you to go and have a look as well when you have time during the break. Thank you. Sorry, Sujata.
So good afternoon, everyone. We'll have, I can say, a very energetic and powerful panel discussion soon now. I will request the panelists to come up. Sorry. I will request the panelists to come up and then we will launch into the discussion. We'll keep some time for questions from the floor for the panelists to answer. So firstly, I'd like to invite His Excellency Mohammed, State Minister, Ministry of Climate Change, Environment and Energy, Maldives. As I invite the panelists, I'd like to say South Asia region has 6 countries, of which we have panelists from 5. So this includes Bangladesh, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. We were not able to get representation from Bhutan, but we have from the other 5 countries. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Rahman, Senior Secretary of Power, Bangladesh. Mr. Rahman, please. I'd like to next invite Ms. Abha Lokesh Chandra, Additional Chief Secretary, Energy, Government of Maharashtra, India. From Sri Lanka, Mr. Chandana Vijay Singhe, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Power and Energy, Sri Lanka. And then from Nepal, Mr. Sushil Chandra Tiwari, Secretary, Energy, Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation. Please. Oh, you want me to? A big thanks to our esteemed panelists. They've come from far and some have come just to be with us for a day and a half. So we really appreciate your being here. As we all know, South Asia is a very dynamic region and it's expected to have exponential increase in energy demand. And in this session, we'll follow where we'll have 2 rounds. You should hear more from the panelists than from me. So first round, I would like to invite the panelists to reflect on key considerations in policy making in the context of your countries and what is being done or what needs to be done, what are the challenges in meeting this increasing demand, while at the same time looking at local and global environmental concerns, other concerns like security of supply and social requirements. So in terms of what are the key policy considerations for the energy sector, I'd like to invite His Excellency, Minister.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. As most of you would know by now, Maldives, Republic of Maldives lies in the Indian Ocean. It's a small country, but it lies from north to south like 900 kilometers. And the land area is less than 1%, indeed less than 0.5% maybe. And the main constraint for us is to, when it comes to land-based activity, we don't have that land to do especially now the proven technology is solar PV in energy sector. So we don't have that land to have that amount of solar installation. So this is a challenge, but during the last COP28, our President, His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Muiz, he has pledged to have 33% of our energy demand from renewable energy sources. So that's a big challenge. At the moment, we are having only 4.5, in fact, less than 5% of our energy and electricity is from renewable energy, and it's purely from photovoltaic PV. And so it's a challenge from 4%, almost 4% to 33% in now less than 4.5 years. But we are hopeful. We are working towards that, and the policy is very clear there. We have frameworks for that, and with international agencies such as ADB, we have accelerated since the beginning of this year how we are going to do that. I think if we are going to have the opportunities, we or otherwise we elaborate now or then.
We'll have a second round as well. So this was just more like an introduction to what are the chief challenges in the country and the objectives. So thank you very much. Let me also say that we can spend around 4 to 5 minutes in the first round, and then we'll come back for questions and also go to the floor for further questions. So thank you very much. May I now invite Senior Secretary, Mr. Rahman.
Ms. Sujata Gupta, Honorable Moderator, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank Asian Development Bank for arranging this Asia Clean Energy Forum, and also would like to thank ADB, Sujata Gupta and her team for inviting us, having us in this dialogue. First of all, I would like to inform that Bangladesh is a country, probably the second largest country in South Asia, and our population is 172 and 80 million people, one of the most densely populated country in the world. In March 2021, we achieved the 100% electrification target. Our present generation installed capacity is 29 plus gigawatts, and net generation this year was 16 plus gigawatts. If I give you the present, the energy mix of our in 2023, of the total roughly 29,000 megawatt installed capacity, 18.38% is from coal, and the next is natural gas and LNG. The natural gas's share of the total installed capacity has been 40%. HFO and HSD based generation capacity is 23.67%. We in 2023 we roughly imported 3.95% of our total installed generation capacity. Renewable and clean energy share of the total installed capacity was 4.65%, and captive generation was 9.35%. During his speech, the Honorable Vice President of the Asian Development Bank they mentioned our vision for energy transition. This vision our Honorable Prime Minister announced while she was addressing the COP26. The vision is to achieve, to generate 40% of our electricity from clean energy sources by 2041. So Bangladesh, being a very moderately renewable energy endowed country, this is a very challenging, ambitious target. But I would like to mention here that the country is committed to achieve this transition target. Out of this 40% in 2041, the total from the renewable energy we will require to generate 17,470 megawatt power. So our plan is to harness 9,500 megawatt from solar park and rooftop solar. From wind, we plan to generate 7,575 megawatt, and traditional biomass 15 megawatt, and municipal solid waste 150 megawatt, and from hydro 230 megawatt. And we are committed to regional collaboration as far as the transition to clean energy is concerned. We have a plan actually to import 9,000 to 10,000 megawatts of clean energy, renewable energy from neighboring countries, namely India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. So in short, as my opening remark, this is our the present scenario and our plan to transition to cleaner energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I turn to Ms. Abha Lokesh Chandra, Additional Chief Secretary. If you could elaborate a little bit on how India and in particular Maharashtra looks at energy policy, key considerations in energy policy.
Okay. So a very good afternoon to all the participants of this Asian Clean Energy Forum. So first part, I'm just elaborating the challenges which we are facing while we are going ahead with clean energy transition. And second part, I will talk about the solarization scheme which we are implementing in Maharashtra. So first of all, a very sincere thanks to the organizers to give me a forum to have a meaningful discussion on this very pertinent issue of clean energy transition. As all of us know that this issue, as it is, cannot be viewed in isolation. This is to be viewed in the background of so many other important issues, such as energy security, accessibility, affordability, then energy efficiency, renewable energy innovations, technological innovations in renewable sector. And most important is financing of clean energy transition. So as all of us know that energy sector is undergoing several changes. We are coming up with several new ideas. For example, in India as well, we are working on green hydrogen project. Then there is offshore wind. There is energy battery storage systems, which we are trying to develop. PSPs is another area. These all sectors are basically driven by low and long-term fixed prices and lower socio-environmental impact. In any case, our coal-based generation is under scrutiny because of so many reasons. So the question arises why this shift is required. In fact, there is increasing industrialization and urbanization, and day by day our energy demand is increasing. And as we know that it is very important, if we look at global emissions, we have to shift towards clean energy sources. And the deep commitment of our country towards aspirational climate goals is very clear, and it is widely acknowledged by the international community, because India is one country where renewable area is fastest growing sector. And as of now, this is one of the most attractive destinations for investment in renewable energy. So if we talk about our country's commitment, as all of us know that in COP26, we declared that we are going to be net zero country by 2070. Then we have to achieve a reduction in emission intensity by 45% as compared to 2005 goals. Then as of now, we are getting 58% of our energy from fossil fuels, which we want to shift to non-fossil fuel based energy by 2030. So 50% will be coming from green sources. Apart from that, we are working on installation of 500 gigawatt of renewable energy in India, and our carbon dioxide emissions will be reduced by 1 billion tons in the next 7 years. So these are the targets in front of us. When we are experiencing transition towards clean energy, we are also facing so many challenges. And I'm sure that other developing countries are also facing the same challenges. The main challenge is the budgetary resources, which are scarce. And as far as financing is concerned, I think the challenges are largely entrenched in the nature of current financial markets, where there is short tenure of loans, then there is lack of adequate debt financing and high capital cost. Then there are sector-specific issues as well. For example, in India, almost 2/3 conventional energy is under the control of state government or the central government. We are having the direct ownership of these generating stations. Whereas when we talk about green hydrogen, offshore wind, or any renewable energy, we are basically the responsibility rests with the private sector. And therefore, the challenge for the sector is then to mobilize private capital at a pace and rate which our policy envisage. So, as we know that public financing is very limited, and in India, primarily we are utilizing it to incentivize private investment into the renewable energy sector. So basically, mobilizing the required finances is our main challenge, and we are working on that. So here, collectively, we need to basically understand, analyze that what are the challenges as far as financing of renewable energy is concerned, so that we can address those issues. When we talk about financing patterns of emerging technologies, basically it is aligned with the debt and equity type of financing, where 70% is coming from, it is sourced from debts, and 30% is mobilized through equity funding. So debt cost is very high, and that is one challenge. Apart from that, whatever 30% part is coming, that is coming from private equity investors. So in my view, there are three aspects which we really need to address. So promotion of variety of investors, from commercial banks to development banks, from private equity investors to institutional investors. We need to actually promote as many investors as possible. Then we have to achieve size and scale to encourage the banking institutions because the targets are really ambitious. And then we have to create mechanisms to cover the associated risks because these are participating in financing of the green energy. So there is no dearth of policy initiatives as far as my country is concerned. There are several policy and regulatory measures which we have taken in the past few years. But of course, a lot needs to be done. For example, we have recently launched a rooftop solar scheme, Surya Ghar Yojana. PM Kusum, we have been working on solarization of agriculture for the past 5 years in India. And there was Jawaharlal Nehru Solar Mission, which was targeted at supplying 24/7 power supply. So basically, it is a clear reflection of our policy thrust on shift towards clean energy. Public financing of emerging technologies are basically of 3 types in India. So first is accelerated depreciation, where basically we are providing tax-based incentives to the solar power developers or renewable developers. Then there is generation-based incentive schemes and viability gap funding. So there exists a whole gamut of policy instruments, for example, RPOs, REC, then feed-in tariff. But of course, we need to work on clean energy funds, concept of green bank, green bonds, infrastructure debt funds, and crowdfunding of renewable energy. So these are some preliminary thoughts about the challenges which we are facing as country and we are facing at the state government level. In the second part, I will elaborately talk about the solarization model, which we are working on because we want to shift towards clean energy resources very soon. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So definitely we'll come back to you on solarization of agriculture because I think it's very relevant to the region where there is a lot of agriculture being practiced, not only in India, but beyond. Let me now turn to Mr. Vijay Singhe, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Power and Energy, Sri Lanka, on your views on what are the key considerations, the key challenges in the energy sector when you're looking at policy formulation.
Thank you, Madam. Good afternoon to all you. If we talk about the renewable energy drive in Sri Lanka, government has made 3 key policy decisions regarding to the development of renewable energy. The first one is the international commitment to achieve net zero by 2050, and the second one is government has decided to have a national target to have 70% of its electricity generation by 2030 from renewable resources. And in COP meeting in Glasgow, UK, the government has committed to the international community that we will not have any more coal power plants. So in line with those 3 policy targets and commitments, various actions are being taken by the government and other government institutions and although the other actors like private sector, development agencies like that. So already we have taken a lot of steps to promote development of renewable energies through the private sector participation. We have 2 ways, hybrid model to promote the renewable development, and in one side we have competitive transparent procurement procedure. On the other hand, we have feed-in tariff methodology if one developer wishes to follow that path. And also we have relaxed the procurement procedures to allow the people, developers who are willing to come into the sector. And also we have ambitious program for rooftop solar development. Nowadays we have achieved 1 megawatt of rooftop solar by now. Last month we achieved that target. However, we do have several challenges. If we talk about the challenges, the first challenge is I can say the requirement of a huge amount of financing. This is very severe in the present economic situation of Sri Lanka because financing, especially large-scale project, is become an issue. On the other hand, we can't disregard the requirement of the other transmission infrastructure and also to make the renewable power to be stable, we need battery storage and or otherwise pump storage. So those construction of those infrastructure need considerable amount of financing. Also, the other barrier is we have densely populated country and we have very limited land resources to allocate for solar or wind power projects. In this aspect, we are searching for alternatives. Basically now we are considering the offshore wind and floating solar options to augment the renewable power development to achieve those targets. On the other hand, we are also considering to have a power grid interconnect the India and Sri Lanka power grids in long term. And if we talk about the development of wind power, already we do have several wind power plants. Only one power plant is owned by the government. All are private sector players, and in future we will promote the private sector participation in wind power. Importantly, I should say that Sri Lanka is now planning to have a new legislation to achieve these renewable energy targets. Not only that target, but we are going to restructure the power sector in the country to unbundle the vertically integrated government-owned utility. So one of the main target in this new legislation is decarbonization the power sector and also provide the legal provisions to promote the open access and energy wheeling, and also establish a transparent competitive procurement process in the country. That's I think that is the brief explanation of the present policy drive of this country, Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just emphasize one thing here, that Sri Lanka has said, by 2030 it will have 70% renewable energy power generation. That is a big commitment. You see, for example, India has said 50% renewable energy capacity. And we know renewable energy capacity generates a factor less than conventional energy sources. So this is really commendable in the case of Sri Lanka, where they are saying that 70% generation will be from renewable energy sources. So thank you very much for that. Let me now move to Mr. Tiwari, Secretary, Energy, Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation, Nepal. your views on key considerations for policy making in the energy sector.
Thank you, distinguished moderator, distinguished panelists, distinguished guests and participants. Let me first highlight on the potentiality of the renewable energy or clean energy that we have. Actually, though the Nepal is not a big country, a small country, but because of the topography it has, within the almost about 180 kilometers, we have the huge variation of topography, like 30 meters to the 8,848 meter, which is the highest point, Mount Everest in the world. So because of the topography and the water resources that we have the great potential, especially for the hydropower. And it has been estimated that we have the potential of about more than 50,000 megawatt that is economically viable. Similarly, we have the potential for solar energy, which is more than 11,000 megawatt, because we have the many barren land. So the issue of land may not be the problem for solar energy. And the potential, out of the potential, the harnessed energy so far is almost about 8% only. So still there is a lot to be harnessed. And the potential that we have, it is sufficient to meet the internal demand, as well as we have the potential to export in the neighboring countries, so that we can contribute to the neighboring country in the region also. So in this regard, actually, the major challenges that we are facing is basically, I like to highlight mainly 4 points. One is actually the financing in the hydropower sector, especially in the generation, because this sector requires very huge investment. This is the financing, one of the issues. Actually, in our case, probably in other cases also, as hydropower is one of the highly returning sector, the private sector is also very much interested in this part. And in the case of Nepal, almost 70% of the harnessed hydropower is generated by the private sector. So their involvement is highly encouraging. Similarly, we are also inviting the international company as well as other international financing institution also to harness this potentiality in terms of financing. The other challenge that we are facing is actually the transmission and distribution infrastructure, especially for the evacuation of the power generated. This transmission and distribution system has a lot of social and environmental challenges that we need to resolve. For this aspect, actually we have the special provisions, legal provisions to have proper environmental assessment, social assessment, as well as we have project-specific safeguard guidelines and actions also. Then the other challenges is that actually the seasonality in the generation, actually because of the climate change and other so many factors, the dry energy is almost about 1/3 of the total generation capacity. So that balancing the supply and demand throughout the season is one of the challenges, and also to have proper energy security is one of the challenges. For this also, we are trying to have some proper energy mix to develop storage as well as river picking projects, similarly solar and so on. Because at the moment, most of the hydropower projects are developed by the private sector. They are smaller in nature, and they are run of the river system. And in the dry season, the generation capacity will be almost about 1/3 to 1/4. And because of the climate change also, this situation has been more worsened actually. So the demand and supply management and market insurance is also one of the challenges. For this also, actually, we are adopting proper energy mixes, trying to adopt proper energy mixes, as well as for market insurance also, we have explored the potentiality to export in the neighboring countries, especially in this region. And we have already started to export to India, and we are planning to export to Bangladesh very soon. Similarly, the other factor, because of the climate change, actually the disaster risk reduction is also one of the major challenges that we are facing because of the climate change. So we are trying to have more climate resilient infrastructure and climate resilient development in this aspect. So in this regard, we have some policy reform also. We have the drafted new electricity bill where there is a creation of enabling environment for the investment. Similarly, we have the policy for institutional development, infrastructure development, including the generation, transmission, and distribution. Similarly, the unbundling of the different generation, transmission, and distribution system in the country. Similarly, in line with that, we have the energy development roadmap and strategy also. As per that plan, we are planning to generate about 28,500 megawatts of hydropower within by 2035, and we have the international commitment of net zero emission also by 2045, which is very ambitious for us, but we are trying our best to achieve that commitment. So based on that energy development roadmap, we are planning that out of 28,500 megawatt, about 13,500 megawatt will be utilized for internal requirement, and the remaining 50,000 are mostly export-oriented projects, especially India and Bangladesh. And in line with that, we have already has a long-term power trade agreement with India to export 10,000 megawatt of hydropower within the next 10 years. Similarly, we are trying our best to improve our transmission and distribution system so that the energy generated will be easily evacuated within the country as well as to the external market, especially for exporting purposes. So we are focusing on cross-border transmission line also, especially with India, to export the power that we generated. So these are the major situation and challenges and our effort regarding this to address those challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So if you notice, all panelists had one common theme, and that was financing. So that's a major issue. Then we also heard from, I think, 4 out of the 5 panelists where land was a constraint. And then, of course, to address these, you're looking at technologies like offshore wind, you're looking at other options like regional trade, electricity trade. And there I can say that the South Asian region is extremely lucky because we have a lot of diversity and we can complement each other very well. So Bhutan and Nepal have a lot of hydro, and India has a lot of solar or solar potential. If we have an integrated grid, this could really help the region. We are talking of even interconnecting with Sri Lanka, India, where the interconnection will actually be a two-way trade. It won't be a one-way trade. So I think there is diversity in the region and also a lot of complementarity, which we should going forward see how we can exploit this to the best advantage. We are really running short on time, but I do want to come back to the panelists. So I'll come back with very brief questions and very brief responses. For Maldives, going from 4% to 33% in like 4+ years is really a big challenge. So what are the government's plans to look at possible public-private partnership to achieve this?
Thank you. Due to the dispersed nature of Maldives, in 2008, just about 15 years back, we have achieved one of the milestones to reach 100% electricity to our population. So it's a very expensive process, but in 2008, we completed that. So there's no individual without electricity access in Maldives. And now the task ahead of us is to change this to renewable energy. Of course, we have plans for that. I think the role of ADB is crucial here. And we have two programs with the assistance of ADB, namely POIST and Assure. This POIST is a very successful project. In fact, it's a game changer in this changing from oil-based electricity to renewable energy. At the moment, under POIST projects, we have solar panels, PV, and storage, battery storage, and management systems in number of islands. We have nearly 170 inhabited islands. And like I said before, all our islands, we have excess diesel power generation is there. But now under POIST, we have installed 28 megawatts PV and 22 megawatt hours of battery storage in 126 islands. And following the success of this project, Assure, POIST, we have formulated another project called Assure. After POIST is Assure. Still, POIST is going on. Next year will be the closing down of POIST. I have no doubt that it's going to be successful and complete in time. And back to the main question, Dr. Gupta, to private partnership in this. We have been, in our electricity generation, recently we have established a system that to facilitate private parties by giving guarantee, like escrow accounts, and giving foreign exchange guarantee, and also tariff buy down. So those, all the projects are not under our assistance from ADB. We have other programs going on, similar programs. But now with the Assure, these components will be incorporated. And based on the previous experience, we have no doubt that it's going to be very successful, and there's going to be a big competition. And in the future, I mean, in the coming year, when we launch, I think we can launch this in this year. And there will be private parties involvement, a significant involvement from the private party to achieve our target of 30. It will contribute to the achievement of our 33% in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me move to Bangladesh. Mr. Rahman, we've been discussing this a lot. When will Bangladesh start looking at competitive procurement for renewable energy generation? I mean, a lot of renewable energy, or a significant part of the renewable energy capacity in Bangladesh is owned by the private sector. However, it's not competitively procured, and prices tend to be higher than in the rest of the region. So when would be the policy change towards competitive procurement?
Thank you for asking me this question. You know, Bangladesh, we are now processing 100 plus projects to generate renewable energy, mainly solar energy and wind energy. So of these projects, you are correct that in many cases, we actually adopted the unsolicited procurement process. But in the past, we also tried the competitive bidding process as well. But for some reason, it didn't work well in Bangladesh. Then actually, we switched over to the unsolicited bidding. We have a special law enacted by our parliament that facilitates us to go for the unsolicited bidding. But recently, there is increasing demand from within the country and from outside of the country that we should go for the competitive bidding. There is a suggestion that the price, the tariff that we are ending up with this unsolicited bidding is probably higher. So if we go for the solicited bidding, competitive bidding, we will be able actually to buy electricity from the private generators, the both renewable and fossil fuel based power at a lower prices. So now we are thinking, I think we already had discussion with Asian Development Bank, including Sujata, that we will actually develop a model, and following that model, the government, as far as the renewable energy, solar energy is concerned, we are thinking that government will acquire land, will develop that land, will develop the infrastructure, and then we will go for the competitive bidding. The private sector will let the private sector to do the bidding, and the lowest bidder will be offered to implement the project there. And so after construction, we will let them operate it up to a certain period. So that is what now we are thinking. I think Asian Development Bank and other development partners also is actually encouraging us to go for this international bidding. I hope and believe that Asian Development Bank will be with us in this upcoming assignment. Thank you, Sujata.
Thank you very much for reconfirming our discussions. And we've had very good cooperation from the Bangladesh delegation. Of course, they're sick and tired of ADB pursuing them on this, but we are hoping that we will be able to get some momentum. And what you described is a very good public-private partnership model. In a previous session, there was a new definition of what is PPP, and it's a perfectly prepared project. So if the design and structuring of a project is done well, the chances of its success are almost 100%. Okay, with this, let me move on to Abhaji. Abhaji, what are you mentioned about your solarization of agriculture policy in Maharashtra. So what were the main or key considerations that make this policy and this scheme a big success?
Okay. So thank you, Sujata, for the knowledge of the audience. I would like to tell you that there is a ticking bomb in front of us and 7 minutes are left. And this is a very intricately designed project, which now I'm talking about. And I can speak about it for 60 minutes even. So 2 minutes is not enough to elaborate the whole project. But I must tell that just now Sujata defined PPP in a different mode. So this is one of the PPPs which we are working on now for the past 9 months. And let me tell you that we are able to tender out around 9,200 megawatt in a short span of 9 months' time. So basically here the objective was to provide daytime power supply to the agriculturist, because in Maharashtra, even in 2022-23, we are supplying 50% power during the night time. And therefore, with this objective, we thought that let us work on solarization of agriculture. And basically, what worked for us. So let me tell you that so many states and so many nations are working on this distributed RE model for a long time. We tried to basically re-engineer, redesign the whole project, and we try to understand the constraints which are there in the solarization project. So in Maharashtra, we have been working on the project for the past 5 years. We identified the main challenges, and we found that there were several challenges which the project was facing. For example, small project sizes, then evacuation was a challenge, then there were land related challenges, because as all the speakers mentioned, that land is a main challenge. Government machinery takes long time to give clearances. Then small scale projects, small scale bidders, that was another challenge. There was no transparency in the system. So when project developer comes forward, there is no data which is available with him. So he spends a lot of time in basically surveying the whole thing. Then there were payment risks. There was no financial viability in smaller projects. So we go ahead with basically addressing these challenges in our model. We aggregated the capacities. So first of all, substation wise, we tried to size the project on the basis of actual usage of electricity. Just for your knowledge, let me tell you that our peak demand of our country as of now is 250 gigawatts. And out of 250 gigawatts, Maharashtra's portion is around 12%, that is 29 gigawatt. And 30% of our total energy is consumed by agriculture sector, whereas the contribution of agriculture in GDP is just 12%. There are 4.5 million agriculture connections. And with this solarization project, we are going to convert 65% of agriculture, we are going to shift to renewable energy. So these are smaller projects, and these are basically connected at the feeder level. Already 60% feeder segregation has already taken place. So with the aggregation model, we went ahead and we found that very competitive rates we received in our recent bids. We have already tendered out this capacity, and we are basically looking forward for ADB's participation in this program, because the central financial assistance part, which is almost 30%, this is basically capex subsidy which we are going to provide. Half of it is coming from the government of India, but the remaining portion of this renewable energy, we are hoping that we will have a participation of ADB.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you. And I think with ADB being involved, we hope to carry this model forward beyond Maharashtra. And let me share another detail on this with you. The key architect of this policy, this scheme or yojana as it's called, is no other than Ms.
Thank
you. In fact, the Ministry of Finance has asked us to replicate it in other states in India, you know, when we discuss this with them. So thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you. Let me now move to Sri Lanka. Mr. Vijay Singh, you mentioned that you're looking at the role for, you know, private sector in a more meaningful way. So what policies are being proposed to increase private participation, especially given that the country is, you know, just recovering from an economic crisis?
Yes, yes. Now we are actually today it will be passed by the Parliament of Sri Lanka, the new Electricity Act. So in this legislation, vertically integrated Ceylon Electricity Board would be unbundled into generation, transmission, and distribution. So, in this new legislation, one main objective is to have private sector participation in all three sectors: generation, transmission, and distribution. Even before previous law, I mean, the law existing today, we do have ample space for private partnerships in generation. Although we do have a number of maybe around 300 megawatts of renewable, only 1/3 of 100 megawatt power plant owned by the government. All generation companies are owned by the private sector. In this new law, only competitive international competitive bidding is permitted, other than small scale projects less than 10 megawatts. That is for encourage the small scale investors, domestic investors, to have embedded solar and wind projects. Even that 10 megawatt limit would be decreased by time to time with the development of the sector. In distribution sector also, private sector would be allowed. Then after this formation of separate distribution companies, government would probably in consultation with the IMF program will invite private sector to participate in. In this transmission sector, we do have only one transmission licensee. That would be continued up to several years, and 51% of the ownership of that company would be held by government, and 49% may be divested. And with this new structure, we do have national system operator that is responsible for procurement of all renewables, thermal, and planning and preparing of power development plans. So that would be a government-owned company. So what I have to tell you that while we are keeping the room for small-scale developments, large-scale developments and transmission development also would be and distribution allowed to the private sector participation.
Thank you. This is excellent. Congratulations on the passage of the bill. I think private sector participation in distribution is very challenging. So you have these aspirations. It's very commendable. And with transparency in the system, there will be increased efficiency, and both on the operation side as well as on the pricing side. Last but not the least, sorry, we are running out of time. If the organizers will allow me, we'll take one or two quick questions. But first, going to my last panelist from Nepal, Mr. Tiwari. My question, again, has a very strong private sector angle to it. Are you looking, you identified transmission systems. Nepal plays a very important part in the regional trade in power, but you identified transmission as a bottleneck. So are you looking at private sector participation in the transmission sector and looking at some like tariff-based bidding, etc.?
Thank you for the question. Actually, as I already mentioned that transmission and distribution network is one of the major bottlenecks for the efficient evacuation of the power within the country as well as to export outside. In this regard, actually, we have the transmission master plan we have developed, and we have identified the major corridors, especially the north-south corridor along the length of the country. Similarly, we have the major trunk line all the corridor transmission line will feed into the major trunk line. So in this way, we have the one transmission master plan, and major transmission master plan as identified and they are in the process of development. And in this regard, actually, we have 7-8 major corridor transmission master plan and one east-west trunk line. And with this trunk line, we are planning to export to India. And for the cross-border transmission lines also, we have identified one is already developed, one is under construction, and 2 other are in pipeline. So for the development of transmission master plan, also the major challenge is the financing. And for this aspect, actually, at this time, actually, the transmission line is being developed by the government company, especially by NEA. And we have recently another separate company also, government-owned company, transmission company, so that the more focus will be given to transmission line. And for the financing of those transmission line, we are also planning to invite the private sector to invest in transmission line, and they are also interested. Up to now, they are involved basically in the generation part, but they are also very much interested to transmission line because it is very important for them also to evacuate the power from their generation plants. So in this aspect, we are planning to have some pilot projects probably for this also. This afternoon also we are talking with ADB also, how we can facilitate those private sector to be involved in this transmission and transmission system. So in this way, actually, we are focusing mainly on transmission system so that once the generation plant is completed, then transmission will also be completed, and we are focusing on corridor approach so that there will be less social and environmental complexities. In this way, we are planning so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we look forward to working with you in that area as well. Any burning questions from the floor? One. Please go ahead and identify who you would like to address this to, and please keep your question brief. Identify yourself, please.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Arjun Gautam from Nepal, and my question goes to respected Secretary from Maharashtra. Ma'am, you have highlighted 2 major challenges for the energy transition. One is financing gap, and second is financing cost. And our respected secretary has already highlighted that the Nepal is facing the same challenges. In that context, my question, I have the 2 very brief questions. The first question is, do you have any specific financing plan to optimize the internal resources for the energy sector? Number 1. Second, do you have any incentive plan to encourage the the large pension fund who mobilize the long-term fund for the long-term financing, and the private sector investors who can develop and finance the projects, and as well as the general public to mobilize their resources to the energy sector? Thank you.
So in my address itself, I think I tried to reply to this question. As I told you, that public finances are very, very limited. And till now, when we were focusing on conventional energy, a large part of financing was coming from the government. But as far as renewable energy is concerned, or these renewable energy projects, for example, wind energy or green hydrogen projects, we are trying to mobilize private resources to a large extent. And public resources are utilized only to give incentives so that these private participants come forward and invest in renewable energy. I will give you a few examples for that. If I talk about the solarization scheme of agriculture, so 30% capex is given by the government of India. And when we approached ADB, in fact, since we have already overshot our targets, our original target was just 4,000 megawatt. But since we are going ahead with 9,200 megawatts, we are approaching different institutions such as ADB, World Bank, to finance our renewable energy projects, that 30% capex. And apart from that, similarly, we are giving other incentives also, which are very much part of different projects of renewable energy. So basically, if you ask me, our main focus is on mobilizing the private financing towards renewable sources.
Thank you, thank you. We've actually really overshot by almost 10 minutes. So many of the questions, the challenges raised here will be answered in the next session, which looks at finance and technology. But I'd like to invite the audience and everyone in thanking our panelists for such excellent insights and discussing the issues and challenges that exist in the sector. So please join me in giving a big hand. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. And this was a very high-level, high-powered panel. So it was a privilege for me. Thank you. Thank you.
So good afternoon. Good afternoon. If you could kindly take your seat, please, so that we can begin our next part of our South Asia regional session on policy, technology, and finance. Okay, so good afternoon to all of you once again, and thank you for coming back to our regional session for South Asia. I think most of you have also joined the previous session, but those of you who have joined just now, this is a part of our regional session for South Asia. The first part was the launch of our coffee table book for Nepal, and then there was also high-level dialogue with the policy makers in the first one. And this second part is the dialogue with the champions. Here, the objective of this session is to not talk about problems, but how those problems were solved. Also, how something was initiated, what has been the impacts of the good initiative or good steps taken earlier. So it's more of a forward-looking, giving a positive kind of response to the challenges that we all are facing. Of course, we cannot just copy or adapt or just replicate from one place to another, because the situations are very, very different, but there will be some elements of what we can learn from one to another as well. And we'd also like to make it as interactive as possible. But just to get things going, so we have requested Vikas Gava, who is the partner for KPMG. We have requested him to make us a very short presentation about this region, South Asia region as a whole, and what are the good things that are happening here, just to get everybody excited about it. So Vikas, over to you.
Distinguished delegates, pleasure to be here. I'm Vikas Gaba. Thank you, Jeevan, for the introduction. I lead power and utilities for KPMG in India. And as we move forward in the presentation, I'll be talking about the strength of South Asia and the context of power trade in the South Asia. The emerging development, especially the large-scale electrification that we are seeing in the sectors, and why this is so important when we look at energy transition as a whole. And then I'll want to leave Jeevan and the panelists with a framework, 5 I's basically. When we talk about, I believe these are critical ingredients when we look at cooperation, especially with respect to energy transition. And I'm sure one of these I's, when the examples come out from the South Asian countries, will come up as prominent, and there will be combination of different I's as we move forward. So first things first, South Asia remains as one of the fastest growing region. It has witnessed a very strong growth, and prospects remain very high as we move forward. Now, interconnectedness between the economic growth as well as what we see on growth on the energy side is they both are very hardwired and intertwined with each other. So that provides impetus for growth of energy system as well. And various estimates, if you look at peak electricity demand, will triple by 2040. Now, these are some examples. I'm sure numbers might have in some cases revised, but the last that is available, future growth in the entire region as we move forward will be led by renewables, and there will be more and more renewables coming into the system. All the countries have committed except for Bhutan, which is already carbon neutral and the first example of that. So have committed to achieving net zero and have ambitious renewable energy targets, collectively about 584 gigawatts by 2030. So look at the scale that the region offers. Now, energy cooperation, some of this was also talked about, discussed, alluded to in the section on CBET yesterday, cross-border electricity trade. But as we see the trade, there have been massive developments in the last few years. Trade has tripled, especially when we look at Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, Myanmar, has tripled in the last 3 years. And as in 2021, Nepal and Bhutan can also now participate in the power exchanges of India. So market-based trade has also, it doubled in year 1 and it has tripled in 3 years. But despite all of this, I want to point out on the potential that still it is the least integrated region, and if more and more integration happens, a lot of benefits can come in. So that is again very important. Now, this is a slightly dated study done by ADB himself, and I saw author's name, Priyantha, was also part of the study. Now, why I chose this was that it took South Asia as a whole, that when these interconnections, when these grid reinforcement between countries were envisaged, vis-a-vis the cost, what was the multiplier? And it is anywhere between 3x to 100x multiplier when we look at benefits in terms of reliability, operational cost, obviated capacity. So these are dated numbers, so numbers are not important, but see the extent of multiplier. And with more and more happenings over the last 7 years, these numbers, I'm sure multiplier would have increased significantly. There are many studies of individual countries that have happened, but nothing that covers the complete South Asia in terms of benefits. Now, switching topics, as the topic that Jeevan has provided is energy transition, and it is a very wide-ranging topic on policy, technology, innovations. If we look at energy sector as a whole, we are seeing a change of massive scale. Now, multiple value chains are getting integrated into single one, and this will provide impetus to clean energy transition, but will also require massive investments, capacities, new grid infrastructure, and innovations. Look at power to hydrogen. Hydrogen itself will need hydrogen grids, infrastructure, and so on. Look at mobility and power getting integrated, and so on and so forth. So this integration, it is no longer something specialized on one area, but how this interconnections or interconnectedness can be harnessed when we look at energy transition as a whole. We have to look at combination of things now, because this is how we are evolving. Now, I want to place these 5 I's when the panelists go into discussion, when they are talking about their success stories. There are, I believe these are critical ingredients when we look at energy corporations: intent, investment, institutions, infrastructure, and innovation. So I'll go quickly into one by one into each. Now we know the G20 summit, there was outcomes which said that regional cross-border power system integration is critical in enhancing energy security and fostering economic growth. However, beyond the statement, the intent to cooperate may differ from the country to country. It is important we identify what will be the common hook that will make this partnership durable. So it is important we look at those. It could be resource security, addressing fuel shortages, alternate fuels, access to long-term resources. It could be supply security. We might have a country might have an energy shortage problem. India might have a peak shortage problem, and so on. Or hedging even risks for a single fuel dependence. Many of the South Asian countries traditionally have been single fuel dependent. Economic growth, look at example of Bhutan, India investing hydro projects coming in, they are participating in the trading market, but the impact trading has or the selling of that power has on the GDP. Financial and economic benefits in terms of avoided cost of capex, lower costs, higher revenue, emission reductions. It could be combination of thereof, and there might be many other things. So it is important that the intent is clarified. That will make that partnership durable. Second is investments. We keep hearing about numbers, 5 trillion needed annually to meet global net zero targets and so on. These are from some references what different South Asian countries will need. And that too scale is also huge, considering what we are doing today. I think we did a paper on this. There were a lot of analysis in that. The synthesis is that the green finance demand trails supply globally. And this is even severe when we look at South Asian countries. So the need for financing is imminent, that is required in all of these countries. Now, many of you will say, and we have partners who have been talking about ease access to finance. Now, as auctions were introduced, solar and wind have become very amenable to private capital. There the financing is easily available. But as soon as we start looking at projects related to energy efficiency, to storage, floating solar, e-mobility, hydrogen, bankability becomes slightly hazy. And why? Because it needs many parts, the interconnectedness we talked about on the previous slide, to come together. There is need for strong project preparation required to bring that to light, to make that financeable and bankable. So new investment platforms, business models, right business case articulation, new financial products, and tapping different sources of financing is important to make it financeable. Next is institutions. The role of institutions, strong institution in ushering in reforms in the country as well as cooperation across countries is very, very important. I'll give you, 2-3 examples. These are not the only examples, but just quickly picked up. CERC, how power market development has been enabled in India. In some period of time, we have real-time markets, green term ahead market, green day ahead market, ancillary markets, all functioning together with robust market engines, with robust monitoring and surveillance mechanisms and so on, and the journey continues. Second, Ministry of Climate Change Environment. We have been working for about 14 years with the ministry. We will hear from the speaker, Ahmed Ali will be there, has facilitated a lot of RE, aggregated RE, and created RE projects. We have seen a growth of 45 to 55% in solar installation since 2016. And ever since the SREP investment came in, ADB, World Bank, both are working very actively there. We've been involved and supporting and working with the ministry. Third is another institutional innovation on SECI, where the lending market was facing issues, and a AAA rated entity coming in between, acting as market aggregator and creating a portfolio size of 60 gigawatts. Unimaginable. It's significant scale. And there are more examples in Nepal, Bangladesh. All the countries will example, and there are cross-cutting institutions also coming up, like Solar Alliance, the new Biofuels Alliance, the Center for Disaster Resilience, CDRI. They are doing some fantastic works, breaking the boundaries of countries and coming together and doing a lot of stuff. Infrastructure, the fourth ingredient. I strongly believe infrastructure creates its own demand. We heard the minister from Nepal talking in the previous slides. On the transmission side, I remember when the first transmission line was mooted, there was a debate whether it will be adequately loaded or not. Today we are talking about, I don't know, reinforcement number 5, 6. There's so many reinforcements that has happened. This is the recently, about few months back, the EV charging infrastructure, where we as KPMG have been working with ADB and NEA on this. This was launched, and now look at the country which is uniquely positioned to take transport reforms, clean energy transport reforms there. Entire energy makes about 98-99% is hydro based, but transport was running on diesel. So ADB, NEA took the lead. This infrastructure has started creating demands. You will see in global reports, public charging infrastructure utilization is anywhere between 5 to 7%. This in few months is 15%, and with increasing awareness, more ownership, it is significantly increasing. So this is the example of how infrastructure enablement can create its own demand. The last, I think I want to leave this, it looks slightly complex, but is something called triple helix model of innovation, where how everything comes together. When we talk about governments, academia and research, and industry, they all need to come together to create innovation. Today, when we look at innovation, something is happening in an incubator in a university, but is it linked to the manufacturing ecosystem? Is it linked to a problem statement that if you reduce the weight of the material by 20%, you will get a ready client in, say, very large manufacturing setup and so on? How do we bring more and more cases together? Can Bangladesh have a RE procurement platform where it procures power through India, from India as well as Nepal, because of the supply issues? PLI scheme is another example of two systems coming together. So when you talk about success stories and the panel discussion, the more and more instances we can talk about of these three coming together, the higher will be the impact and scale of innovations. So with these 5 eyes, I will end and pass it back to Jeevan. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Vikas. So now what I suggest is that I would now like to invite all the panelists here, then we can have a discussion. First of all, in the order of what I have in my agenda, I would like to request Mr. Kulman Kising, Managing Director, Nepal Electricity Authority to Nepal, to come. Mr. Rakesh Kumar, Managing Director, Assam Power Distribution Company Limited, India. Mr. Alamgir Morshed, CEO, ITCOL, Bangladesh. Mr. Ahmad Ali, DG, Ministry of Climate Change, Environment and Energy, Maldives. And we also have Ms. J.C. Paul, CGM, State Bank of India. And last but not least, Mr. Nalinda Ilangakun, Chairman, CEB, Sri Lanka. And Vikas, please come. You also can stay here. So what I propose to do is that I will request all the panelists here to make their initial remarks, about 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Since this session is focused on innovations, and then I request all the panelists, because they have also heard what Vikas has just presented, keeping that in mind, and what their own institution or in their country they are doing in terms of challenges, how they fought the challenges, what kind of initiative that they have come up with, or anything that they would like to highlight to the participants. So I will just go through the order of what I just mentioned. So first I will request Kulman Kising, Managing Director, any for your floor, please. You can either do it from there or here, either way is fine, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeevanji. First of all, I'd like to say good morning, good evening for everybody. And Nepal, I'm Kulman Kising, Managing Director for Nepal Electricity Authority. It is a vertically integrated utility in Nepal. Transmission, distribution, and generation we own by ourselves. There are many private sector for generation, but we are trying to get more private sector in transmission and distribution also. So our generation is mostly 100%, almost 100% from hydropower and solar. Solar is around 150 megawatt, and there are many projects, solar private projects are coming up. And hydropower, almost 3,500 megawatt hydropower we have already generated, and many private sector hydropower is coming up. We are now trying to digitize Nepal Electricity Authority for reliable supply, for power trade, efficient trade of electricity within the region. Digitization is the one of the key initiative that we are taking up. Because of trade, that all the units in Nepal, generation unit, has to be connected to Indian load dispatch centers. So we have to connect all the units of generation, and we are now connecting all substations, grid substation and distribution substations with support from MEDIVI. We are digitizing all grid substation and all our operation units to the center. We have big data center established recently, and we are connecting all units all over Nepal to connect to this distribution control center and LDC. The challenge that we face is how we can connect to every centers, every units. So we are now expanding this SCADA system to all over Nepal. This communication linkage has become the challenge. So with ADB support, we are now expanding all over Nepal. This SCADA expansion project is going on. And distribution, we are now launching the RMS system, billing system, and a smart metering system all over Nepal, so that we can digitize our distribution and billing system also. For our operation, for financing and human resource management, ERP system is now we have ERP system launching to our operation. So there are many projects going on for digitization of ENA. For energy transition also, we are going for electrical vehicle charging station digitization and e-cooking and many more. The challenges that we face is the operational challenges in charging station operation, that I think that should be centrally monitored in terms of the involvement of private sector. Many private sectors are coming to that system, and definitely the financing is also the challenge for overall integration of the system, and the interconnection of cable networks and the SCADA expansion, this operation of these systems has become another challenge. That Nepal Electricity Authority, we have been working for solar power, private sector involvement in solar power. Many solar investors are now attracted for private sector. There are many PPPs we are going to introduce for transmission and distribution and solar projects. I think in recent years we have been exporting electricity. We used to import electricity more. Only import situation was there 3 years before. Now we are going to be the net exporter of electricity from this year onwards. In wet season we are exporting, and dry season we are in deficit situation, but more and more export is going to happen even to Bangladesh. This will create more cross-border trade going to happen in near future. Thank you.
Thank you, MD sir. Now I would like to request Mr. Rakesh Kumar, MD of APDCL, please.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Jeevan. Thank you, ADB, for giving us this opportunity to highlight one of the major initiatives which we have taken up in Assam. Assam is the northeastern state in India, and it is near to Myanmar border. And if I put a profile of the Assam power scenario, then we have the around 2500 megawatt demand, daily demand, and we approximately take from almost 70% thermal power from the generating stations. So there were demand from several corners in Assam that we need green power, especially for green hydrogen projects, and then EV charging stations also, they are demanding green power, and then other industries also, they are coming up. So, but there was not much scope because being a valley state, there is not much scope of the hydro projects there. And wind potential is also not much. So then we thought of setting up a big solar plant in Assam, and then with help of ADB we envisaged 1000 megawatt project. So 2 years back this project was conceptualized, and then the challenges were there because getting a land of that area, that is approximately 2400 hectare, was a challenge for us. And then after a lot of efforts and the search, then we got land. And thereafter their second challenge was the evacuation, because they are taking power out of the thermal plant and connecting it to the national grid. There was requirement of the transmission line. So after having consultation with central government and power grid, then we were able to come out of this challenge also. And there was a near approximately 11 kilometer power grid line was there, and we were able to take power grid on board for taking the power out of that plant through national grid. So in any case, this is the largest single site project in India, and the beauty of the project is that it is having the components like the best practices prevailing so far in the solar sector, because the 750 megawatt will be done on EPC basis, that is the sovereign project, and then 250 megawatt will be done by the PPP. So the private participation will also be there, and the sovereign, of course, it will be the grant funded project. The idea is that to keep the tariff low, because if we opt for entirely for the PPP, then tariff will go approximately to the thermal level. Then it is of no use if we are not able to keep the unit rate competitive. So, and then it has been linked to the battery energy storage project also. So we are putting up 250 megawatt battery energy storage project linked with this project. So the excess energy will be stored and will be utilized for the grid stability as well as for the peak hours. So it will definitely has given us a opportunity to provide green power to the industries, and we have tied up all power already, but the project is going to be commissioned next year, but we have sold out the entire power till now. So it has become economical feasible also. So this is one of the important project in our country, especially in the eastern region. There were certain concepts that in eastern region there is a solar irradiation is not good, and the capacity utilization factor is low, so there will not be economy in the project. But we have seen through our small projects, we have done 100 megawatt project, and we have seen that it is at par with the other regions in the country. So this misnomer has also been destroyed basically through the pilot projects, and now we are competitive as good as with the other regions of the country. So this is one of the project, and we want to thank ADB because they have given the technical as well as the all kind of support in getting this project in our region, and soon we will be able to commission the project. Thank you, ADB. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. So now I would like to request Mr. Morshid, CEO ITCOL, for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Good afternoon. So I think many of you had been in the previous session, and our Senior Secretary Power is heading the delegation, and he did discuss a lot of areas of the plan for Bangladesh on the power and energy. The way I would want to kind of give my opening remark is in line with what KPMG has just presented in terms of optimism. Bangladesh has reached 100% electrification in 2022, but the GDP is growing at almost 6%, and the projection is that in next 10 to 15 years, with an average demand increasing by at least over 10%, the requirement for power is just ever increasing and at a faster rate than GDP, and which definitely brings in the issue of investment, and that is an opportunity. Now the main discussion around power is how do we increase the composition of renewable energy, because like many other countries in this part of the world, Bangladesh is vulnerable to climate change, and the government has a very clear NDC plan submitted. And in that term, there's a master plan for renewable energy that Bangladesh should want to achieve 40% of clean energy by 2041. We are still at 5%. That's a long way to go. But the good news is that in last few years, we have seen a huge interest among the investors to invest in the renewable energy landscape in Bangladesh. And the primary reason is, again, we did talk a lot about the bankability of these projects. I think with the government very determined to withdraw the subsidy that is being provided to electricity and other energy sources, some of these projects are becoming viable. And in last 1 year, we have seen a significant growth, especially in the solar power expansion. Solar rooftop, we do mention that Bangladesh being kind of a small country, there's an issue of land, but there's a lot of abundant space on the rooftops. And the initial assessment says that at least 5,000 megawatt of solar rooftop potential is already existing, and we are making progress in that regard. We are grateful to many of the development partners and multilateral banks like ADB, who have been partnering with the government of Bangladesh to really take this agenda forward. Obviously, with the variable renewable energy, the discussion comes the challenge of transmission and distribution. These are also very much in the agenda, in the roadmap, and the investment required. I represent a financial institution owned by the government, which is known as ITCOL, or Infra Development Company Limited. Again, this is a part of the financial innovation that had taken back in 1990s, when this company was formed basically to help the growth of HFO, or the fossil fuel-based power industry, because the private sector, again, at that point in time, had a challenge in raising fund for the fossil fuel-based power companies. But over the years, as we have started to focus on more clean energy, today ITCOL is focused on helping the private sector to raise fund for those kind of projects. We have funded, and there are many great stories that we could share. We have renewable energy intervention in agriculture has been very successfully financed by ITCOL, which I'm very happy to know that ADB is going to support a very similar project in solar irrigation pump from, I think, this year onwards. We have many other, solar rooftop is now one of the pet projects or flagship projects that we are supporting today. So ITCOL itself is in carbon finance, I think, is the new area. I'm very happy to say that we are working with World Bank to have a regulated carbon credit framework for Bangladesh, which I'm sure will open up the market for carbon credit. ITCOL has already done de-risking a sizable amount of carbon credit from one of its clean cooking project,
in the voluntary market. So I think, in terms of forward-looking, there are challenges like many other countries, but I see there are a lot of hope and optimism also. And the good news is we are very clear about our agenda, what we want to do, and we own those targets, and all the stakeholders are working towards that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now let's go to the sunny side of the world, Maldives. So Mr. Ahmed Ali, over to you.
Thank you, Jeevan, and good evening to everyone. I think, as you all are aware, that Maldives is a small island developing state consisting of 1,200 islands, out of which 187 are inhabited and more than 160 are tourist resorts. We achieved universal access in electricity in the year 2008. So we have one island, one resort concept, and each of these resorts, they have their own power generating and distributing system. Same goes with the inhabited islands. Inhabited islands also, they have their own power generating and distributing systems. That means each island have its own power system. We don't have one single national grid. So far, we have installed 65 megawatt of solar PV diesel. Our total installed capacity, power installed capacity is 600 megawatt roughly, out of which 65 is solar renewables. But we have a very ambitious target to achieve 33% of power demand through renewable energy sources by 2028. This was announced by our president, Dr. Mohamed Muiz, during the COP28 summit last year. So we are working together with the multilateral development banks and other partners in achieving this objective. As we speak, we are implementing number of projects together with Asian Development Bank, focused on two areas. One project is focused on the public sector investments. Under this program, what we are doing is we are making the power systems of these islands, small islands, ready for the private investors to come and invest on those islands. Even though we work on preparing those islands for the larger investments, but at the same time we are also installing solar PV and battery systems on these islands as well. Under the under the POIST project, which is the public sector investment program under the ADB, we are targeting to install roughly around 26 megawatt of solar and close to 20 megawatt of battery energy storage. Then under the second program, which we are looking at the private sector investments. For the private sector investments, what we are doing is, since the islands are small and power demands are high, we don't have enough space for solar PV installation on the roofs, and we don't even get the space on the ground. So the only option that we have is the ocean. When we talk about the ocean, again, we don't have that much of lagoon, because lagoon is the only place where we can expand our island. So we have to look at the opportunity cost of taking the lagoons and installing renewable energy or solar. So I think the best option for us to expand solar energy would be to look for the solar PV installation on the open sea. In order to achieve the objective which I mentioned earlier, 33% of power demand, we cannot, the government cannot achieve that or go close to that target through the sovereign investments, but we have to attract the private sector in order to attract the private sector and de-risking them, we have a program with the World Bank and also with the Asian Development Bank. What we are doing is we are providing them the currency convertibility support, and also at the same time we are giving them a escrow support and tariff buy down support, because it is very important at this initial stage to create, build the private investors, confidence. We have to do certain things. So with the support from Asian Development Bank and World Bank, and also with other multilateral development banks, what we are doing is creating an investment platform and providing the mechanisms that they can invest in the renewable energy space in the Maldives. It is not only the technical installations, but also we are working together with these institutions on developing or bringing the proper regulatory regimes to facilitate these kind of investments. With that, I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. So now I would like to request Ms. Jessie Paul, CGM of State Bank of India, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you to Asian Development Bank and the organizers for extending me this opportunity. So I'm Jessie Paul. I'm heading the Climate Finance Unit of State Bank of India, which is the largest commercial bank in India. It's a public sector bank. So just to introduce the bank, our balance sheet will be around 67 trillion Indian rupees, say roughly 800 billion US dollar. And we have a market share of say 20% plus in the advances as well as deposit market in India. So coming to climate finance, I'm extending it a little over energy security and energy and renewable energy, etc. So coming to climate finance, see, climate change, climate risk, adaptation, mitigation, etc. As all of us know, it's a very complex issue and it needs collaborated efforts from every stakeholder. And financial institutions have a great role to play in the whole scheme of things. And in India, as State Bank of India, we acknowledge that we have a leadership role to play. So we have been financing, say, renewable energy, solar, wind, etc., right from the beginning. But last year, as we realized more about the gravity of the situation, there were many discussions at regulator level, policymakers, etc., on the requirement to expedite efforts. What the bank did is that we established this climate finance unit. Earlier, the financing was done in respective business units, but bank established this dedicated climate finance unit to give the focused attention it deserves. So in India, the immediate challenge, I wouldn't say in India, for the bank, the immediate challenge was that even now there is no taxonomy in India. What is green and what is not. So what we did within the department is that we identified a list of activities which are unambiguously green. Like there is no ambiguity about these activities. Nobody will ask us whether it's actually green or not. So we identified those activities and we circulated amongst, we have around 23,000 branches within India. So I'm talking about within our domestic operations. So we made this list of activities available to all our operating functionaries so that they don't have any ambiguity or doubt whether an activity is green or not. So that is the first major activity we undertook after this department was formed. Second was that this department our interim, say 2030, India also has 2030 targets. For within State Bank of India, we also have an interim target that at least 10% of our domestic advances should be green by the year 2030. So what we did is that as part of budgeting exercise, we said 10% of the incremental growth from every business vertical should be green. So we started with it last year. When our financial year ends on 31st of March. So we started this last year. The 10% budget was given to the operating units, and another major issue was capacity building and awareness creation. For many of us people, what is green? What is a requirement for climate finance? For capacity building and awareness creation, we tied up with many of the international agencies which are active in this space, many of the domestic consultants and agencies which are active in this space. We conducted many workshops, seminars, etc. in-house, outside the bank also, so that our people sitting at the, say our business units are aware of what is green and what is the requirement for climate finance and how grave the situation is. So that has started to show results. Last year, so our green advances grew by say around 26% plus, whereas the so-called red industries, it grew by around 7%. But again, of course, that small base effect of green advances, it is there, but it's a small start. So what we are aspiring to do is that, as I said earlier, 10% of our domestic advances to be green by 2030. Then another major initiative we have taken up is that, see, India, as you all of us know, we have committed to net zero by 2070. So as a bank, our internal emissions is hardly anything. So we need to look at our financed emissions. So we have taken up two major initiatives. One is that we have started that exercise for measuring our financed emissions, carbon emissions. That will be a baselining for us. It's a 6 months, we have engaged someone for this exercise. So it's a 6 months kind of exercise. And once we have that report, we would know where we are with regard to carbon emission. And actually we are committed to net zero by 2055, 15 years ahead of India. I know it's a challenge. So once we have the report of this exercise, measurement of carbon emission, baselining will be done, and we have to work on the roadmap, sectoral decarbonization roadmap. That is one major activity we are taking up. Second is that, again, for a bank, the physical risk and transition risk. Again, we have engaged someone to measure the physical risk and transition risk of our portfolio. Once that report is also there in place, we need to work on how to really reduce physical risk and what activities to, what initiatives to take to reduce physical risk and transition risk of our portfolio. There, one major enabler will be the Government of India's transition roadmap to reach net zero by 2070, because as a major public sector bank, we need to align ourselves with the government policies. And India being, of course, we have that emerging markets problems like energy insufficiency, insecurity, plus sustainable development goals, etc. We need to balance. So we have to align ourselves with the Government of India policies. And again, can I take 1 or 2 more minutes? And again, here, see, when we talk about adaptation and mitigation finance, one observation I have is that, see, many of these activities may not fit into the conventional banking models. See, we bankers always look at the commercial viability and whatever we are financing, whether the cash generation, revenue generation, cash surplus, etc., from those activities, whether that is good enough to repay the loan taken from us. So many of the adaptation and mitigation activities obviously will not fit into that. So that is where we need a collaborated, we in the sense financial institutions, policymakers, industry, everyone needs to put their heads together and arrive at structures which will help funding these kind of activities. I'll stop here, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. So now, last but not least, but I would like to request Mr. Nalindas, Chairman CEB, for his opening remarks, please.
Hi, Boan. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In my opening remarks, first, I would like to pay my gratitude to organizers by naming this panel as a representative of champions. I hope nobody will question about the marking system. And anyway, I'm honored and privileged to be in this distinguished panel. When my colleague Jeevan said us to give us the opening remarks in few minutes time, I was facing the biggest trouble how to summarize a lot of good things into a few minutes what you heard in our sector. But I selected only 3 points in few minutes time to mention it. What we have done in one decision we implemented during our past and what is going on today and the tomorrow's plan. First thing, actually, I should mention that it's not really secret to everybody. The country was declared in 2022 as a bankruptcy by defaulting $51 billion debt payment. Then country had gone to a very big crisis in all the aspects. The power crisis was the biggest one. Then we made the crisis into the opportunity and we start putting the industry into the right track. Then it was a very, very big challenge in the time when the government assigned me this challenge. It was about 15 hours power cut, 2 slots, 7.5 day and night. And we were lack of fossil fuel to generate power. And the hydro was also a very, very drastically difficult situation with the dry weather and all that. Then one point we understood was cost reflective tariff, which was most benefit. At that time, actually, we were to get the income or the required funds were about 725 billion Sri Lankan rupees, whereas we were earning only 255. So we'll have to fill that gap, which we made it cost reflective with a lot of difficulties, challenges. You know, as a developing country, when we start doing these things, how the political scenario works, how this community will be impacted and all that. With all that, with thanks to the power minister and the government, we managed to get into the right track and made it cost reflective. And the tariff policy, we calculate the tariff policy, have the plan on yearly basis and review it in all quarters. Then if there is an increase, we'll have to match it, and decrease, then we'll deduct the tariff on the consumers. So we made it in that way as one strategic decision. Then we again understood to continue with this thing, what other things to be fulfilled. Then we understood this is actually still now up to date. It's a vertical integrated industry. All the generation, transmission, and distributions are under one arm. So we wanted to unbundle it. Then to do that, we have understood we wanted to have a new Electricity Act in the country, which is older than 55 years. It was formed in 1969. Then we understood there should be another one. So industry reform is a very certain thing we needed. And even now we started, and Electricity Act is one thing. Then we have to do a energy market opening up, then regulator reform. So all three has to be done. So Electricity Act now today it's being debated in the parliament. Hopefully that will be approved today in the afternoon. Like I mentioned in my previous presentation, tomorrow I may not be the Ceylon Electricity Board chairman. So it will be a new venture. So anyway, then the third one, what we understood, renewable energy need, because most of the cost we are facing in CEB is 85% of the generation cost. So what we thought it has to be bring down. In order to do that, the best solution is the renewable energy. And government declared a 70% renewable energy target, which is very, very challenging, but we will do that. To do that, we know we have a lot of challenges like fundraising, because you know it's almost 2.5 times money needed for the transmission development to overcome with the constraint of the transmissions. Then about 4 times of capital and 10 times of lands, and there are a lot of difficult things we'll have to face it. But we are still onto that, and we will try our best to achieve that one, whereas which will be very good strategic decision to bring down the energy cost. And at last, I should say, to do that, ADB has been assisting and guiding us for a long time, and they help us to have our main, the largest wind project, 100 megawatt wind power project in Mena, and Morogoro hydro plant, and there are few transmission lines. They are helping us. So ADB been a very good colleague to us by assisting and guiding. I should mention that, and my thank to as a country and as a CEB to ADB for supporting us, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for all the panelists for giving your opening remarks. So what I propose to do is that I will very quickly ask at least one question to all of them, and after that we'll open the floor for any Q&A any questions that you may have. I will simply follow the same order as we started. So first, let me request Mr. Kulman Gising, NEA MD. Sir, you have highlighted NEA's efforts on various aspects of it, including the digitalization. There are a lot of smart meter related work and also automation. And also you mentioned about distribution grid management, things like that, which are very, very positive developments. I mean, for digitalization, it's also very, very high on the ADB's agenda. So it's supposed to help all the utilities, not only electricity, but also for others. So from that point of view, we are very, very eager to continue engaging and supporting NEA on that front. But what is important for us is that what is your vision for the digitalization for NEA? Where do you want NEA to be in, let's say, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road when it comes to the digitalization?
We have already started digitizing our infrastructures and our whole system. But it will take some time for having all systems digitized. Actually, digitizing the infrastructures has been already started. The smart metering and SCADA's expansion to all units of our infrastructures, it will take some time. We have already started all the works parallelly. I think digitization not only in infrastructures, but within the process of system, how we can digitize whole process of our operation in management and human resource management and financial management, and all front we are now parallelly going ahead. So it may take some time. The major difficulty that we are facing is this linkage, communication linkage between different units, and that project we are taking up, and it will take some time. I think it may be 3 years or 4 years down the line, it will be completed.
Thank you. So now let's move on to Mr. Rakesh Kumar, MD, APTCL. MD sir, you also talked about this 1,000 megawatt, very ambitious, very large solar project that you are taking up, and then we are also very privileged to be working with you and supporting you in that effort. But oftentimes, what we hear is that India is already doing so much, so good on solar already. and there's so much of private sector interest to do it. So they can simply, let the private sector do it and buy. So what was, if you could, I mean, you touched upon it, but if you can expand it a little further on why there was a need for, sovereign side of it, even though you are trying to do this one with the PPP for the 250 megawatt, which is already very good. I think that may be a question that many people are also thinking. So that's one. The second thing is, you could have also just procured from other states, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and all these, very solar-rich states. Also, you could have just buy from those to meet your requirements. Also, if you could shed more light on that one, please.
Yeah, thank you, Jeevan. You are absolutely right that we could have purchased the 1000 megawatt from other states or from the private generators. Actually, we did analysis that if we buy from a trader like SECI, Solar Energy Corporation of India, or directly through private party. So you are aware that in India we have the procurement norms and we have to go through tendering process and all that. So that was very cumbersome, and secondly that the power available through the SECI or other generators, that was not readily available in next 2-3 years. So all the projects will come up say after 4, 5 or 6 years, and there is high probability of delay in power projects. So the cost would have been added extra, and the purpose which we wanted, that to have the competitive low cost green power, that would have been defeated. So that's why I opted that let's do our own project in our own state, and know that it will definitely have demonstrative effect. The other private players will also join the state after they see that a big project has been commissioned there. And of course the ancillary economic activities and other things, developmental things will also come up. So in terms of tariff and in terms of the, you can say that the on time, basically for keeping in view the two factors, we chose to go for our own project. So that's why we selected this.
Okay, no, thank you. I also think that, once you do this kind of a large scale project in a state like Assam, that will really motivate more private sector to come in, and the future projects they can take up. So now move on to CEO of ITCOL. We, in this session and also, of course, in other sessions also, we also need to also focus on the energy efficiency side of it. I mean, from ITCOL, we have heard, we have known that you have been very pioneer in financing solar, solar rooftop, solar home systems, and so on and so forth. But can you also elaborate a little bit more on the energy efficiency side of it in Bangladesh? Whether you are doing something on that one or not? If you are not doing, why are you not doing it? If you are already doing it, what kind of instruments, mechanisms that you have or that you want to do?
Thank you. Yes, we are doing a lot to start with because you see, Bangladesh is dependent mainly on natural gas. So 70% of the energy is from natural gas, and it's a resource which is depleting. There are discussions around the, the reserve, and there's a mixed view around it. So energy conservation is very critical. And the government has already outlined a target for that as well, that by 2030, we want to save at least 20% of energy through the conservation, And, in Bangladesh, 80%, almost 30%, over 30% of the energy is consumed by the textile sector. And many of you in this room would be wearing garments which are exported from Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is the second largest exporter of garments after China. We export around $50 billion of garments every year. And the other two, and residential consumption is over 50%. And that is because of the abundance of gas that we had. This has not been properly used, and the homes were using almost gas, free of cost, and that has costed the country in terms of depleting this gas. And most of our industries are gas-based. Interesting last few years, because of the excessive use or not properly use of gas, we are now importing LNG, which has a cost in terms of foreign exchange and on the budget. So obviously energy efficiency is a big agenda. And ITCOL definitely as a financial institution has been playing a key role there. You'll be, pleasantly surprised to know, if you don't, that the garments industry in Bangladesh has the highest number of what we call the LEED certified factories, which is, this is the US Green Building Council rating. And out of, in globally, there are around 100 of these LEED certified platinum factories, which is the highest rated green buildings. And the Bangladesh garment sector has more than 50% of that. The debate is usually the garments owners would complain that they are not being paid for that. Over the years, they have invested heavily on these buildings because these buildings or factories cost way more than the conventional factories. But the price of a product does not increase with compliance with that green. So that is a challenge, that is a debate. But still, I should really salute our garments manufacturers that despite all the odds, they have been heavily investing in these very expensive green or LEED certified buildings. Coming to ITCOL, our portfolio, which is around $1 billion as end of 2023. And in that portfolio, over 30% is in energy efficient projects. The government of Bangladesh is now working on the leveling exercise. We have engaged as consultants to do that. We are focusing on the backward linkage industries like cement, because, or the floating glass, for example, where ITCOL has invested. For example, in the cement sector, they used to use the ball rim BRM technology. We are investing in the VRM technology, which is said to, saves energy by at least 20%, more efficient than BRM technology. Similarly, transportation consumes around over 12% of energy. So, I really congratulate Nepal for the huge penetration of EV. That is something we are working on to create an ecosystem, and we have partnered with ADB to create that ecosystem of EV and introduce and increase the penetration of electric vehicles. Bangladesh, we have a huge number of these three-wheelers, which consumes a lot of electricity because those batteries are not really up to mark. And there's a lot of work going on in terms of converting those to more energy efficient batteries. So transport is a big sector we are focusing on. Textile is definitely another sector, and the backward linkage. So in summary, energy efficiency is definitely the way forward because, otherwise we're investing or spending a lot of money in importing these LNGs and other energies, for that matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to Mr. Ahmad Ali. Despite being a very small island country, even in countries with a lot of land, even there, land for solar is an issue. But in your country, with hardly any land there, but still you managed to do a very successful solar programs there. Mr. Ahmed, you personally have been very, very much involved in all these programs, design, implementation, and so on. So if you were to pick up 3 factors that led to Maldives' success in this solar, what would those be?
Thank you, Jeevan. As you have correctly mentioned, we, having very small islands, we don't have enough space for solar installation. And as a result, we are facing lots of challenges initially at the stage when we started. But I think if I answer to exactly to your point, the first should be to create awareness among the community, because they are very resistive at the point when we started. But with our very hardworking and capable team, we start these awareness sessions very early in the morning. Immediately after Fajr prayer, our team visit homes and meet the people who are, cleaning the roads, sweeping the roads. They go and start talking to them. So, and then it goes like that. They visit schools, they meet with the parents, they meet with NGOs and civil society, go and teach them, tell them what are the advantages, why we need to do this, what is our contribution, how much we spend on our of GDP for fuel import, and negative impacts of climate change. All these, we teach them and tell them how to do not only the renewable energy, but at the hand in hand, we are also telling and teaching the people how to reduce energy consumption, energy efficiency. So we are actually creating awareness on these two things together. Then second thing I think would be to create provide training, continuous training to the utility staff, especially the people who are engaged in operation and maintenance of these solar PV systems, because the renewable energy systems are very new to us, recently only established. So people don't have proper knowledge on operating and maintaining of the system. So it is very important to provide continuous training, because of the sophisticated nature of the components of these renewable technologies. And the third thing I would say that it is the thinking process, innovative thinking, and cross-sectoral planning. So we are bringing new technologies, like since, as you have correctly mentioned, due to the limitation on land, we are thinking out of the box and looking at the ways and means to install renewable energy on open sea, because in the world I don't think we have commercial projects at that scale on open sea. We do have projects on the still bodies, but we don't have those technologies, and we are working together with ADB and World Bank in conducting feasibility studies and piloting such projects. We have installed such ocean-based floating solar technology on resort islands, because 50% of solar PV or renewable energy installation in the country is installed by the resorts, and other 50% is on the inhabited islands. So not only these things, but also we are trying to incorporate or bring other sectors, like introducing solar assisted ice making plants, solar assisted ferries, and also solar assisted agriculture. These are the things that we are doing on that aspect. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So one thing he mentioned, which I really liked, is that this awareness, you have to do this one early in the stage of your project planning, but also early in the morning. So please remember that one. So when you do that, your awareness, I think people are fresh there also. But Mr. Ali, you also need to invite us to Maldives sometimes. We see only the very nice pictures of the resorts, but we never get to stay there. So please invite us next. Invited? Good, thank you. So now, Ms. J.C. Paul, I think you touched upon being a very large financial institution with just so much of outreach in all over the country. I think you are also playing a very important role in taking some risks, especially in the new technologies and so on. If you could elaborate a little further, even though you touched upon briefly about technologies like electric vehicles and also battery storage, and now the green hydrogen is coming up. Because some of the financial institutions still feel that the risks are too high, maybe they should wait, or they put the premium so that the interest rate becomes too high and may not make sense. But I think you are already making some very positive some innovations in terms of how to structure those things and then still make it make a good offer to your clients. If you could elaborate on these areas.
See, any new technologies, generally we talk about first mover advantage. But in the case of these new technologies, I would say it's a first mover disadvantage because the scalability of commercial viability and scalability of these technologies, when it is yet to be established, obviously there'll be apprehension, reluctance from the financial institutions to support the investors. And even from the investors' side, for them to put in the money before all these boxes are ticked, that's a big challenge. So if you remember about solar, maybe 10 years back, the cost of solar was much higher and the PPAs were also at higher rates. And as and when technology improved, when the cost came down, when electricity solar could be produced at much lower rate, naturally the PPAs which were signed earlier for a longer period, there were many wanted to wriggle out of it. So I wouldn't say that, say, financial institutions alone can take it forward. Whenever it's a new technology, whether it is green hydrogen or even battery storage, etc. So it again, I'm coming back to the same point. It has to be a collaborated approach. If 100 rupees, putting in 100 rupees doesn't make sense for the investor when he looks at the rate of return which he wants, that is where policymakers, whether it's a viability gap funding or subsidies, etc., they also need to come forward. So in India, if you look at, see, there are various schemes like productivity-linked incentive schemes. And if you're looking at the EV space, this FAME schemes, 1, 2, 3, etc., wherein government has come up with financial support by way of subventions, subsidies, etc., not only for the OEMs, that is manufacturers, but also for, say, purchasing an EV. There are subsidies, especially for two-wheelers, etc. Banks, from our bank, we are supporting these activities, majorly see established technologies, I would say. Electric vehicles, we are giving a concession of 25 bips in interest rates. And again, India has big dreams with regard to electric vehicles. As of now, I think the penetration is maybe around 6%. Say 4 million plus vehicles, including two-wheelers and three-wheelers on the road, and we are looking at, say, 80 million electric vehicles by the year 2030. So again, I'm talking about the numbers, but again, these numbers are mostly two-wheelers. So electric vehicles penetration in India, it is highest, say around 49% in the three-wheeler segment. But whereas in passenger cars and electric, say commercial buses, etc., it could be around 5%, 6%. And government's policy, see, government is doing a lot of stuff here. See, government policy is, or the targets the government has fixed is that in the space of passenger cars, we are looking at 30% penetration, and buses, I think 40% penetration, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, 70% penetration, etc. And government is also supporting manufacturing of EVs in India by, see, recently the scheme was announced wherein, manufacturers who are willing to put in, say, $500 million in capex over a period of 3 years, there are tax incentives, duty incentives, etc. They are also allowed to import up to 8,000 electric vehicles per year. Of course, there is a requirement for local value addition. So all these new technologies, till the time the scalability, commercial viability is established, there needs to be a collaborated approach from the policymakers, industry, financial institutions, so that we are able to take it forward. So it wouldn't be a one-man show. Any sector, say financial sector alone, wouldn't be able to take it forward because we are dealing with public money. So it will be collaborated effort, and India, there are policy support. Everyone is coming forward to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we are running out of time also, but let me, and there is also very important one question that to our chairman from CEB. I know CEB has done a lot. I think it's in a very limited time. Of course, we cannot get into everything, but one area of interest for all of us about this India-Sri Lanka interconnection. If you could kindly elaborate what is the status, and also, of course, there are procedures that we will have to do this one. But from the CEB point of view, what are the benefits that you see, having such a line when it happens?
Thank you, Jivan. It's this timely question, and this has been discussing for many years in BIMSTEC forum also, and the last 3 years actively discussions were taken place. And today, this year, the Sri Lanka's energy requirement is about 16,640 gigawatt hours. The maximum peak demand is 2.7, and daily comes to between 45, 50, something like that. With setting up the 70% renewable plan in 2030, it goes up to, with the requirement with both fossil, both thermal and the renewable, it's going to be 28,000. And 70%, if we succeed with that, it's going to be about 20,000. So you can imagine we need to have we need to have a interconnection to sell all these excess RE to other world. So in that case, one point, I think there are a lot to be considered, but as a main point, we'll have to consider about the capital investment from our country, how much it's going to be cost to Sri Lanka as a capital investment, and how many years we are going to have for the return on our investment, and that amount of investment, how the country will be benefited, community will be benefited with that capital investment, with the opportunity cost calculation. That's one. And again, now without the intergrid connection, we have started of doing this, or the materializing this 70% plan. And the price what we are taking right now as a sales price from the PPA. So if we go into a large large price, the highest price for renewable energy, how are we going to sell it to the other country? Then at least we have to think a way or make a strategic plan, at least with the new act, or the revisit after the intergrid connection, whether we could do the, like we will definitely do the open access market, and power wheeling will be coming. Then we'll have to reduce the RE cost to export out of Sri Lanka. So these points are very valuable, and there are a lot to be considered, but this is indeed need, because once this is done, new system comes, we definitely have to have this intergrid connection out of the country. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I know we still have a few more minutes to go, but if you have any questions to any of these, so let me collect some of the questions we know. So if there's one, anybody else? Okay, so there are two. Okay, so please go ahead. And please also, brief introduction, and then whom the question is directed to.
Thank you, Jivan sir. I am Arjun Kumar Gautam from Nepal. And Jivan sir, if you allowed me, I have two questions to different two panelists. The first question is to DMD of SBI India. Definitely, green finance taxonomy is very important, and it facilitates to the bank and financial institution to finance in the green energy, green sector. In that context, do you have any idea that the RBI is planning to issue the green finance taxonomy to the bank and financial institution? And if there is any regulatory or the regulatory mandate or the directive to bank and financial institution to finance the certain percent of portfolio to the energy sector? That is my question to ma'am. And the second question to the CEO of ITCOL. You have mentioned that the energy demand is increased by 10% every year. That is one thing. And another thing, you have to produce more renewable energy to meet the energy transition target. So huge amount of financing is required for that, and that is the common issue of the all South Asian countries. And in that context, I have the two short question for you. One is the as per your the recent portfolio, the 30%, approximate 30% of portfolio is financed in the energy sector. I think that that is not for only the green energy or in entire energy. And in that context, do you have any plan to increase your portfolio to the energy sector? That is one question. And the second question is, as my understanding, the ITCOL is GC of accredited institution of Bangladesh. In that context, do you have any, could you share any your experience to the collaboration with the GCF? Thank you.
Thank you. So there are in fact 4 questions, two. Yeah, no, very relevant. Yes, please go ahead. You also want another question? Yeah, please. Then let's collect the questions and then I will request the panelists to respond.
All right,
and
okay.
we can close
Thank
it.
you. Well, for Mr. Ahmed Ali, Director Energy Maldives, you have the double challenge of large projects and innovation, both at the same time. So from the policy regulatory perspective, what the government is doing to try to promote and enable the investment in these type of projects?
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll request the panelists to respond and then we can close it. Okay, that's good. So, first.
So, sir, your first question regarding what I understood is that whether there is a taxonomy in India, green taxonomy. As of now, no. See, we know there's an EU taxonomy, we know there's a Singapore Asia taxonomy, which was launched during COP28. But taxonomy, as all of us know, it has to be country specific because it can't be standardized. So as of now, no, but we hope that Indian taxonomy will come out with the Indian taxonomy soon, which will be a great enabler for all the banks. Then second question was whether there is an obligatory green financing requirements for the financial institutions. There is no obligation from the government. See, there are obligatory renewable energy purchase obligations for the industry, but for the banks, as of now, there is no stipulations in India. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll take the second question first, the experience of GCF. So yes, for us, it has been very important as an institution because we are dependent on the funds, those are channeled through the government. So this was the first initiative to make ITCOL more independent in terms of having more bilateral funding arrangement. So in that sense, GCF being a DAE has been very useful so that ITCOL now has the capacity to raise fund on its own. Obviously, there is an intervention of the government, but still it's more of a bilateral in nature and we will act as their fund manager as well. So it has been a good experience and we'll use that fund for the energy efficient projects and specifically for the textile and garment sector. And as I have mentioned, these are the most important sector for us and getting almost $250 million plus is very important. And on top of that, a part of this fund will be used for on-lending to commercial banks. So I think the question that you've been asking, how active are the banks, and as my colleague from SBI is also mentioning, I think this will help the commercial banks to have a fund, a resource to invest in these kind of renewable energy or climate finance kind of projects. So that's a very good model in that sense. Second question was probably in terms of the financing challenges. Is that the overall question? That there's this challenge in terms of funding. So yeah, and that's a very universal kind of a truth that even for Bangladesh, the kind of financing that we need is a challenge. We're extremely dependent on concessional funding. So there's a lot of discussion going on in financial innovation, and that includes things like, you know, green bonds and to the extent of carbon finance. So I think the whole range of you know, products are being discussed, and we see things are moving forward because some of these projects have a very good IRR, which the commercial banks rarely look at. For example, the solar projects, these IRRs are really beyond 15%. I mean, why should not banks invest in those? For Bangladeshi banks, there is one challenge is in terms of their balance sheet. Most of their liabilities are short term. So they need to really, you know, if you have to invest in a long-term fund, their balance sheet does not have the capacity. But the good news is some of the insurance companies are coming forward. And we also see guarantee, you know, there are development partners who are coming up with payment guarantee schemes. For example, IFC has already introduced that through EatCall. We see similar interest from ISA. We see ADB. So, you know, many of these banks locally has the local currency fund, but they don't have the credit appetite. I mean, they don't want to take those risks. So that is where the credit guarantee schemes it helps in non-funded risk participation, as we call it. So we are asking those development partners that don't just give us liquidity, give us some credit enhancing product. So that is the way forward. Thank you very much. I hope that answers your question.
Mr. Ahmed Ali, you want to, just one question for you.
Yes. Actually, we are doing number of things. Firstly, we provide technical support to the investors, like doing feasibility studies, so that they will have better understanding of the situation. And the other things that we are doing is provide financial incentives like tariff duty concession, and also we have brought some regulatory changes to make it easy for the investors to submit proposals on different projects under different categories. One is that if the investment is above 100 million USD, then they can submit directly. They can submit proposals under SEZ, Special Economic Zone regulation. And also, if it is less than 100 million USD, they can submit proposals under PSIP proposal format. So those are the things that we have done so far to create an enabling environment. In addition to what I mentioned during my presentation, discussion here in the panel, the escrow support, tariff buy down, and also tariff buy down, escrow. What else we have? Currency convertibility support. So those things we are doing. So I hope I have answered to your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now what I propose is that let's close this session. So let's give a big round of applause to our panelists and speakers. And I would like to thank all of you as well for listening and participating in this one. So I think this basically concludes our day's program for SF. We have kept you busy for in the evening as well in the past few days, but today is a free time for you. So I'm sure you may have lots of programs and plans as well. But have a good evening, and then tomorrow is our closing plenary in the morning. So see you at 9 here. So with that one, thank you so much once again.